You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. From broken bones to broken beliefs, the path to healing can be a transformative revolution. Take the quantum leap with me in today's episode. This episode contains adult subject matter and listener discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this episode, we explore what happens when healing reaches into the deeper layers of who we are. Our conversation takes us into the relationship between pain, belief, and transformation, and how they shape the course of our lives. Dr. Grant Rex Kruhly is a quantum healer, mentor, and founder of Depth Healing, with nearly 60 years of experience in martial arts, meditation, and energy healing. Holding a PhD in Integrative Medicine, he specializes in Morphic Field Physics, a revolutionary approach that clears subconscious programming, removes karmic debt, and unlocks deep transformation at the core level. Dr. G works with high achievers, spiritual seekers, and those ready to break free from limitations, guiding them to achieve profound healing, resilience, and empowerment. His mission is to help people reclaim their personal power and live in alignment with their highest potential. Let's meet Dr. Grant Kruhly. Hi, Dr. G. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because from pain to quantum healing is a very interesting topic indeed, and I would love to find out more, and I'm sure our listeners would too. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. And would you like to start us off with maybe a little bit about yourself, the pieces of your journey or your story that connect to what you do today? How did you arrive there? And what is it that you do today?
Okay. In my particular case, everything is completely coherent and in one direction. When I was born or incarnated specifically for my work now, and I knew that by the age of 3. I had a very clear vision of helping save humanity by the age of 3. And then the rest of my life, I'm just shy of 70. All of my life has been the unfolding and the training, the suffering that I needed to go through and study under all the great masters I studied under in order to be able to do the work I do now. Whether you look at my professional martial career, or my martial career led me to the huge injuries, breaking my back in half, legs, eventually cancer, all these things. I had to heal them all. I did not have surgeries except on the knees. That led me to these great master doctors. I studied from them, under them. I had my martial career spanning over 46 years. It's a real martial career, not Mickey Mouse children's play in pajamas, kicking watermelons. I carry 3 samurai lineages on my shoulders. And I train the military, SWAT, professional. I'm the real deal as far as training for warfare and everything. And then when my dojo was closed, I went back to school in my late 40s and became a licensed doctor. And I was licensed as a chiropractor in Georgia and Tennessee. But then in 2012, I have a lot of different healing systems under my belt. I never had any success in America whatsoever financially. One day in 2012, I was introduced by the divine to the fact that I can do distance healing. And that changed everything. And depth healing began to be born in 2012. Everything I do now, folks, is all channeled work. You can't go to school anywhere and learn what I do. There's no such thing anywhere. Depth healing is strictly by itself. And I am the living example of depth healing. Everything I say or do, I did or I'm doing. Depth healing is a marriage because I'm a mystic, not a mystic in terms of my power or rank, but my lifestyle is called bhakta, is a marriage of mysticism with cutting edge quantum science. And the foundation of depth healing was passed on to me from a great master, Dr. Larry Habersky in Atlanta, Georgia, over a period of 8 years. And that's where I learned about cognitive dissonance, the quantum field. At the same time, when I was married to Tammy back, I lived in Georgia, I was introduced to the great compassionate light and oneness, as well as my Reiki master, Kaya Aman and Russell Holcomb's Tibetan Reiki. Everything congealed all at the same time. But please understand, when I say all this stuff and it all sounds real cool, don't mistake that I have some kind of power. Irregardless of whatever I talk about here, I am a channel, like a relay station. I, of myself, not have any power. There's a difference. A person with power we call a CD, and I do not have CDs. I'm a channel, relay station. The trick with me is I am a excruciatingly accurate, surgically precise relay station. That's why I take care of my people, and depth healing is designed to handle anything. I don't care what it is. Either I can do it with science or we'll do it through the divine. But any which way you go, answer will be there. That's what depth healing is for. That's why I'm alive. That's what I do.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And what an interesting journey and a story you've had so far. And I'm sure our listeners are very curious at this point as well. How does one become this channel? A very interesting story that you have shared. Now, when we talk about depth healing, this might be familiar to some of our listeners, and they may be familiar with quantum field, and those concepts. But for those listeners who are not familiar with that, can you give us a little bit of an overview of what we're actually talking about when you talk about depth healing and you're talking about quantum in general terms? What would that mean for our listeners?
Okay, that's a very well put question. Folks, if you're not familiar with quantum science or whatever, basically speaking, it's the science, it's the most accurate science in the world today, quantum physics. It means, or it's describing how everything is made out of energy. It's sometimes hard to understand that because when I hit my fist and this fist doesn't pass through, it's solid, or the table's solid and so forth. But actually, it's true and it's not true all at the same time. But everything is just a bunch of fields of energy. And all that energy, everything has a frequency. Let's say we have colors, and you look at a color. So the color red has a particular frequency that's different than the color orange or the color yellow. And I do a lot when I'm doing my surgery on my clients, I'm using the color code for the chakras. I think I'm going to lose everybody. So first of all, everything is energy. Let's back up. What I'm doing is, let's say you have high anxiety and you call me. We say, okay, you have anxiety, and I'll measure how much anxiety you have, and I can get rid of it and just evaporate it and be done with it. I use destructive interference waves for that. You can go on Google and look up destructive interference waves. And then I build your system up with constructive interference waves. But the issue isn't the anxiety that you have now. The issue is, why do you have the anxiety you have now? To answer that and heal that, we have to go back in time from conception until the age of 7 and go into the great, vast universe of your subconscious mind and find out where and what the downloads and imprints are that are supporting and providing a foundation for you to perceive something now that gives you anxiety. I will go back to the very first time, the very first download or imprint, irregardless of time, date, place, make no difference. I'll find it with surgical accuracy. I will disassemble it and all of its entanglements relative to your level of consciousness at the time of the session, and I will disintegrate that download. It will cease to exist. And then I'll keep going in serial order all the way up until you're past the age of 7. Now I have removed all of the software relative to your anxiety now. That is, and none of that information, as we'll find out later in this podcast, belongs to you. The only stuff that belongs to you is after the age of 7. That's the way your brain is designed. I'm going to knock out the foundation. Now I come up to you at the present age and we ask the question, is there any program anywhere in your consciousness that is supporting or creating the anxiety you're feeling? Answer is yes. We find out how big it is. I disassemble it and I disintegrate it. When I do that, every time I'm doing that at all in real time, your brain is reorganizing. Everything, the neural nets are disassembling, cognitive pruning is occurring. That changes your perception, which then changes your vibration. By the law of resonance, everything changes. Physiology changes, life changes, everything changes. And I'm doing it all relative to your field and your consciousness. Your body and consciousness and everything tells me what to do. I don't decide anything at any point ever. And everything that I do now is being channeled by the divine for you. When the session is completed, I have empowerments through India, empowerments through Tibet, and empowerments through Japan. And one of my empowerments is the power of prayer with God. What we're going to do is pray for you, and the prayer is significant. And then at the end, after the prayer, I'm going to give you Diksha. What is a Diksha? That's a blessing. Looks like almost like Reiki. You've ever had Reiki? Reiki, when I don't need Reiki anymore, but in the old days, when a Reiki person is going to channel frequencies through them into your body. With Diksha, I channel God through my hands into your brain. That's been studied by functional brain scans a long time ago. I don't know what the recent studies are now. And whenever you get a Diksha, the Diksha will continue for months and months, disassembling areas in the sides of your head, we call the parietal lobes, that are responsible for the past and the future, worry, fear, regret. They just start to dissolve. And the frontal cortex lights up like a Roman torch. What does that mean? It means you're becoming more awake. And your bond with God, with the divine, is becoming actual or stronger, being developed. It depends on you. And that's fundamentally what I'm doing. I do surgery to change your life, remove your problems. If it's a disease, I disintegrate it. It doesn't make any difference what it is. If you have a broken heart, we remove it. If you have financial problems, we remove it. Doesn't make any difference. It all comes from the same place. And I work in that place. The body is children's play. It's just the end of it's the last car on a long train. That's all. It's not a cause of anything. It's an affect. Everything is an affect. That's what I'm doing. And depth healing is sophisticated enough to be able to do that. And that's why it took me 54 years to get here, because I had to go through a great many things, and I still am, in order to, don't get me wrong, I haven't arrived and I'm not enlightened. I got a long way to go. But I receive empowerments every day. I receive weekly empowerments through the divine, and then monthly, my level is being jacked up at all times because it's a never-ending journey, and my work requires that I'm connected like that, that it's not just a bunch of egoic nonsense.
Yeah, I'm fascinated about what you just explained to us and shared with us. And I'm getting the sense that as you are speaking about how this works in a more general sense, that really in our bodies and within ourselves, we already have, I want to say, this perfect blueprint or version. Somehow we don't arrive at making that visible at all times. And so there's disease that happens or challenges that happen. But since it's not coming from anyone else and you're channeling these frequencies, does that in essence mean perfect health or this perfect wealth or this perfect happiness is already within us?
We'll put it this way, everything depends on grace. What she's referring to is very true. And I'll give you some historical type of stuff to be able to understand this. If you didn't have negative programming, and if you didn't have negative karmic debts of some kind, you're designed perfectly. How do we know that? In thousands and thousands of laboratories right now, all over the world, they have a single cell that they put in a petri dish, and it never dies for over 60 years. It never dies, a single cell. Normally, every second, millions and millions of your cells die, millions and millions are born. But this cell never dies. Why? All they did was they take, and it's replicated in all the way around the world, they take a petri dish and they put a perfect environment. Because the environment is perfect, there are no stressors, no nothing, everything's fine. So the cell just never dies, period. And you'd be probably the same way. The issue is we're not designed like that. And it's interesting, we're designed for this way for survival, and at the same time, it's our biggest problem. Do you want me to describe what that is? Because this is the human condition and this is the human challenge. This is everything in a nutshell. And unfortunately for us, they will solve this issue with AI, at which point human beings will become irrelevant. But the way we're designed goes like this. When you're born, there are 10 programs that control you. 10 control everything. The first and the second come into you, you and I, when dad's sperm enters mom's egg. At that time, program 1, which is past lives, program 2, which is genetic inheritance, extending back 6 generations on mom's side, 6 generations on dad's side. They're drawn in to the impregnated egg, fertilized egg, by the resonance of the geophysical location where they made love, dad's thoughts and energy and everything when he's making love to her, and hers. And that, by resonance, draws all this stuff into you. And when it's coming in, there are things that are good and there are things that are bad. Nothing you can do about that. It's got nothing to do with you. That has everything to do with mom and dad. Next, once the egg is impregnated, the third program begins. That is where your personal subconscious starts. And it goes all the way through the womb, the birthing process, and the first 6 hours when you're born. First 6 hours, very critical. Then when those first 6 hours are done, the fourth program begins until the age of 7. That is the foundation of all your software. You're recording, your subconscious records at 40 million bits of information per second. 40 million bits of information per second, 24/7. None of it belongs to you at all. Why would we ever be? And then at 7, our brain, the frontal cortex, activates. And why would we ever be designed like that? Survival. If you're born in a tent on the Amazon Delta in the middle of the Amazon jungle, you need very different software than a kid that's born in Manhattan, New York. Very different. The subconscious software, which by the age of 7 is about 10 quadrillion bits of information, if you do the math, that controls all your life. That's accepted by all neuroscience, all your life. And then the frontal cortex kicks in, activates age 7. It only processes 40 bits of information a second. It's as weak as water. But that's where your dreams are, your aspirations, your plans, all of it. Cognitive dissonance sets in where the subconscious has the power of 1 to 2 million to 1. 1 to 2 or 1 or 2 million. That's the ratio. This never wins, ever, unless it's changed. The subconscious is changed and brought into alignment with what you want to do. If you have 6 PhDs and 5 MBAs and you're going to build an entrepreneurial business, and something in your subconscious from dad says you can't do that, you will never do it. I don't care what that doesn't make any difference. That's why millions and millions of people, like myself, I started with Tony Robbins at the age of 19, never could make a dime, nothing. I never knew what cognitive dissonance was. Very few people know what cognitive dissonance is, but Dr. Larry Habersky, he taught me. And once he taught me, we started disassembling mind because I had tons of lack consciousness from my dad. My dad always had money, but he was a child that grew up from Polish immigrants in the Great Depression. He's nothing but laced in negative associations to money. I could never make any, but it didn't make any difference what I mastered or anything. Soon as now I'm a very wealthy man. But the cognitive dissonance got to be neutralized. Now, the beautiful thing is all of the programs, including those above the 5th program is age 7 to whatever age you are now, they can all be changed. They can all be changed. My specialty with death healing is 3rd, 4th, and 5th programs. For all the other programs, I require divine intervention, and that's why I have the empowerments with the divine, with God. Because if you want to change the 1st program, 2nd, you want to change Global Collective is above the 5th program. Global Collective, if you haven't noticed, is a mess. We're that close to extinction right now. And it's going to get a lot messier as AI takes off. And then above the Global Collective is the 7th program, which is the solar program. That's astrology and numerology. And then the 8th program is galactic. 9th program is universal. And the 10th program is where the heavens and the hells are. That's the other realms. I forgot what your original question was.
Thank you for these tangents. It's certainly fascinating, and I'm glad we're getting a bit more insight on how this is structured. I was just wondering in the beginning if you feel that we as human beings have these sort of perfect blueprints within us. And
Oh, yes.
I think you have very much touched on that with what you were saying.
Did I answer that? Because the basic idea is yes, but that's so. The problem is because of the subconscious software in there, it creates the gaps and the fears. And they've done, especially since the Industrial Revolution, a tremendous job of programming and brainwashing everybody, because it's very easy to handle. Just like I know how to undo brainwashing, everything in the modern world is nothing but brainwashing. And if you don't know how that works, you're vulnerable, completely vulnerable. Those programs are why you get sick, why you have pain, why you have whatever. When you have a pain, if quantum models of healing, the body will speak to us in symbols. When it has pain or disease, it'll show up in different areas of the brain trying to tell us what's going on. That's why you get pain in the right shoulder, not the left, or on the left side of your body, which is the past, versus the right side of your body is the future. It's symbolism. and the body wants to tell you where the issue is. If there were no issues, you're fine. Something to back her up by Bruce Lipton, my favorite microbiologist, that's a quantum microbiologist. If you draw a graph, and when consciousness is low, you are vulnerable to environmental toxins. As consciousness rises, you are not vulnerable to environmental toxins. And at a certain level, you will be superior to environmental toxins. Cannot touch you at all. And that's why what he uses, Dr. Lipton uses as a backup for that, Southern Baptists that are in the United States can drink a glass of strychnine poisoning. Nothing happens. You know what strychnine poisoning is? Put a drop on your tongue, you're dead and gone, like that. Or they can let a rattlesnake bite them. Nothing happens. And then Bruce Lipton says, why don't I drink the strychnine poisoning? Because his belief isn't that strong. Me too. I'm not going to drink. I'll be dead before I hit the floor. But they can do it. And that's where consciousness, and of course, the truth be known, those Southern Baptists, that's the divine. That's not just a state of consciousness. That's the divine. I've witnessed that when I had cancer. I was a senior staff doctor in Tennessee, and one of those little Southern Baptists came to pray for me, and her eyes lit up. She was like a possessed, divine little angel praying for me, and that was not the lady that walked in the front door, not while she did the prayer. That's a little bit of a different, but it's still consciousness. So the answer is, we're profound, but you're full of quadrillions of holes, and all the holes are perception, and all the perceptions have a frequency. You have a high frequencies, you have a high, beautiful life. Torture, heavy grief, you have any of those energies in you, they act like a giant weight. And then the people and events in your life that you run into, guy after guy hurts you, trouble, that's your frequency by the law of resonance giving you that life. That's why they come to me and I remove that. When I'm done with you, you won't have that frequency anywhere in your field. And then you won't meet any more of those guys. I know, because I've lived all this stuff. I really did. You should have seen me. I lived in a state of rage for 30 years. Rage. I developed breast cancer from that. I had huge cataracts on my eyes. I had to be removed because of the amount of hatred I had. I couldn't stand what I was seeing. That all has to do with epigenetics. That's all frequencies. Everything is frequencies. Now I'm just a nice old guy.
Wow, helping others by channeling these frequencies. And how does that work? You mentioned that you also worked on yourself in different situations with a broken spine, cancer, cataracts. There's different things that are coming up for yourself. How does this law of resonance, how do frequencies, energy, vibration, how does that all come together when we have physical challenges that are happening in our bodies?
When I broke my back in half, I was 27, and I was full of rage at the time. My dad just died. When I was 27, everything happened at the same time. I was supposed to move to Japan to be uchideshi under Shoda Sensei, live in Japan for 5 years, because I was one of the top 1% of Aikido masters in North America back then. And there's a combination of elements here. I was as strong, I was a champion. I go into a weight room and I broke my back in half moving the weight. L5 breaks in half, both pedicles break right in half. Why? A number of reasons. One is the amount of anger in me needed to be healed and removed. If I had been allowed to move to Japan, I would have never become Dr. G. Rex Kruhly. And I would have been another automaton martial artist. I was real good, but I'm not the greatest or nothing. There are guys make me look like an idiot. The back break, there's karma involved. The divine is saving me for my downline. And the anger made the structure so brittle, even though I was in machine shape. And that happened, and it took 3 years. I was able to seal the back with meditation in 12 weeks, but it took 3 whole years. And what is that doing? I needed to, first of all, understand so that when I'm a doctor now, I have empathy for people that are crippled. I learned all about quantum healing and meditation back then using Jose Silva Mind Method and white light. I learned all. It was this big learning curve. It introduced me to Dr. George Goodhart Jr., founder of Applied Kinesiology. It's all woven into the fabric of your life. Now, the cataracts, when I decided to become a doctor, I was in my late 40s. And when I went to the colleges and found out everything was completely bastardized and corrupted by pharmaceutical companies, I couldn't stand to see what I was seeing. Epigenetics, which is a signal transduction frequency, I created because I didn't want to see. The big cataracts came. I became completely functionally blind, had to have those removed. The cancer that developed was the last bastion of real anger in me, 2014, was on a little pocket of fat that I had since I was a kid, a young child, in my chest. Epigenetically, over a period of 3 decades, all of that anger and everything that I lived with epigenetically changed the fat to a slow-growing estrogen cancer. And we just cut it out. Dr. Clay Kofer, one of the greatest surgeons you could ever met, he just laid me over his desk in his office. Gave me a local anesthesia, cuts it out of me with like a little buzzsaw. I never took any chemo or any kind of medication whatsoever. And then we had to finish that anger. And it was on my right side because it had to do with my future. My marriage was a homunculus. Everything was a mess. And then that same year in 2014, the Divine rewrote my 5th program in the sacred chambers at Dr. Rossi McClellan's. And that may sound esoteric, it is, but the Divine rewrote it. And then the next thing I knew, in a matter of months, I found myself leaving North America, moving to Thailand, which I had never dreamed of in my life. Almost all my education is Japanese. As soon as I got to Thailand and left that energy field, which I never belonged in, I always knew that since I was a child, never belonged in North America. And as soon as I got out of there and I got over here, I was able to cultivate right away wealth consciousness. The Divine just blossomed everything. And now I'm a doctor to people all over the world. But I came out with nothing, absolutely nothing. And I had to know what it is to work in factories for 10 years, to suffer. Just last year, I was in a massive car crash, and all of 2024, I couldn't walk. I can only walk now because I had to come to Pattaya from Chiang Mai, met these 2 chiropractors here, geniuses, and because of them, I can walk. There isn't any doctor like that in Chiang Mai. The Divine led me right to them, and a complete miracle. Once you're in the stream of grace, part of my job is to help people get into a stream of grace, because once grace is there, life is really quite nice, or a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. If our listeners are curious about what they've heard in this episode and they want to know more, how can they connect with you, Dr. G, and where can they find you, and what kind of programs or services do you offer for people who'd like to connect with you and find out more about your work?
Okie dokie. Write this down, and she'll probably put it for you, but it's depthhealing.org is the website. Depthhealing.org, not .com. And then if you go on YouTube or you go on Instagram, you go anywhere, you look for Depth Healing. It's all one word. And then, or put my name, Dr. Grant Kruhly, Dr. G. Rex Kruhly, and you'll see me. What I do is I have, if you see me privately, That's like a vertical dive into yourself for your life, whatever it is. And you can see me to take care of some kind of problem, or you can see me preventatively, or you can become my student and I will be your personal mentor. Then for the general public, because I can do Morphic Field Physics. What's that? That means I can take almost any size collective. If you give me an entire football stadium of people, I can work on everyone's consciousness at the same time relative to a single question. What I mean by that is if we ask however many people are in the stadium, do I have fear of failure? Any collective of people has an emergent property of consciousness. All collectives have an emergent property of consciousness. If you think of a whole big room full of laptops, all those laptops are people. All of the software in each computer is their subconscious mind, and the Google Cloud or their individual cloud is the morphic field emergent property created by those laptops. And it's a feed forward, feed backward system. When I do collectives, and I do 2 per month, I work in the cloud and I feed it down to you. Instead of when it's a collective, if you have 10 quadrillion bits of information in your individual software to the age of 7, and I have 100 people, I have 10 quadrillion times 100. That's a big field. And that way I don't miss much. We don't miss much. And then I operate in the cloud, disassemble and erase the problem, and that feeds down to each and every one of those computers. See? I do 2 collectives a month, and all of the collectives work together synergistically. That by the end of the year, you're a very different person than you began at the beginning of the year. Okay? Anytime you work with me, you will never not grow. Period. It's impossible. Every month, there's a full moon. In terms of mysticism, the mystic side of things, I do a full moon Seva ceremony. The collectives are $50. The full moon is free. And everybody is required to prepare 2 prayers. 1 prayer for what you want God to give you or do for you. Pick one thing and write it out very formally. You write it out like a thank you letter. Must be like a thank you letter that it's already done. Because the divine only works with solutions, not problems. And then you make a second prayer for the world, for humanity, or you can make it for your individual country. And then using the full moon as the great amplifier, I will connect us all with the great compassionate light, which takes the form of whatever God or angel you worship or care about. And then I perform different types of mantras and so forth and set that space. And then you will read at a given point in time, you will read your personal prayer and God will endorse that. The only thing we don't know is when God will endorse it. You never throw those prayers away. You keep them in a safe place. Then we go through a different set of mantras for the global collective, for Mother Earth, and you will read that prayer. That's once a month, and we have one coming up. Well, this is going to air later in the year, but every single month there is a full moon. You go on my website and you'll see it there. Full moon Seva ceremony. Seva just means service, because that's what I do. I'm a person of service. The collectives are horizontal healings. Privates are a vertical dive. Many times the collectives will reveal something and it doesn't clear because of the collective. That's when you see me privately and we'll find out why and remove it. Many things will clear with me instantaneously. Some things, depending on karma and all kinds of other, there's so many things, Might take a while. It depends. You have to be vigilant. Spiritual work is like brushing your teeth. If you don't brush your teeth for a couple of months, you got a problem. Always best, since all of the universe is a process. That's all that exists. Everything is dependently arising, dependently ceasing. If you ever really understand, that's the most important piece of information you'll ever know. Everything is dependently arising, dependently ceasing. There's no such thing as a victim. It's impossible. And then if you need me, I take care of everybody myself. There is nobody under me. I do it all myself. When I die, death healing is gone. I'm the last Kruhly in my family. When I die, there's no one left. And I want to help. The only reason I was born is to help. I want to help as many thousands of people as I possibly can. We need help, lots and lots of help. And because of the advent of AI, if you're not familiar with the truth about AI and what's actually happening, I highly recommend you go on YouTube and listen to Godfrey Hinton, Hinton. He's the father of AI. And now there's any number of other great scientists, Yuval Harari and so forth. And they're all coming on because they understand. And you need to understand this stuff. And I'm preparing my people, anyone that wants my help, to understand intrinsic life. You need to start developing the mindset for intrinsic life now, because there will be no jobs. All jobs will be replaced and eliminated. If you don't know what intrinsic life is and have hobbies and interests that are intrinsic to you, it'll finish. You have to understand those kinds of things. That's what I'm preparing myself also. The only people who do not need to be concerned with something like that are enlightened people, but they live in a completely different consciousness than us. I'm not enlightened. The only guy I know on television to show you enlightenment is Eckhart Tolle. He's enlightened. None of the other big scientists are enlightened any more than I'm the tooth fairy. Enlightenment is very different. If they're enlightened, then they don't have to worry. But for all of us, we identify ourselves with our jobs, with all kinds of different titles and hats. When those things are all removed, who are you? And why are you alive? You have to answer those questions, because that's coming fast. You got about 3 to 5 years, and then it's all gone. All the jobs are gone, whether we like it or not. That's absolute fact. Be informed. Not trying to scare anybody. What you want to do is be informed. You have to understand the arena.
Absolutely.
If you do not understand your arena, you cannot play in the arena.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing that with our listeners. And of course, we will be linking to all of Dr. G's offerings in the show notes as well. Be sure to check there how you can connect with him, how you can find his offerings, the collectives, or if you want to work with him privately. If this has sparked something in you and you're curious, you'd like to know more, or you have some challenges you'd like to work on with Dr. G, we will make sure that we link all of that in the show notes. Have a look there. And a fascinating journey forward, and very curious to see for our listeners how this expands and unfolds if they're going down this path of exploration and actually finding out more about themselves and how all of that is connected to their lives. Dr. G, thank you so much for joining me here today and spending your time sharing your wisdom and your experiences with our audience. I truly appreciate it. Thanks so much from the bottom of my heart for being here.
Thank you, honey. It's really a pleasure. Anytime you need me, just give me a holler. I'll be there for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And take really great care of yourself. And I do hope that we'll have many more decades of Dr. G to do this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. God bless. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.